I wanted to talk about Mercury retrograde. Everyone gets their knickers a little bit in the twist around this time when Mercury's retrograde. Is currently in Scorpio, but I want to talk about a little bit more about the effects that, and maybe more of the myths. I'm not going to go into the astrology so much because essentially it doesn't go backward. It appears to go backwards, and it slows because it's slowing down. And I could go into. I'm not very good at the technical details, but what I will tell you is that. You need to put it into perspective. Mercury travels around the zodiac in a year, so does Venus and so does the Sun. Now, the Sun never goes retrograde. The Venus doesn't go retrograde as often. Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year. So immediately you can kind of put in perspective the speed. It's faster. It moves faster. And so when Mercury is in retrograde and it appears to go backwards, what tends to happen is that's why people put the rethink, redo, because it's all about kind of slowing down and perhaps looking at the things that you've done in the past. Bear in mind, Mercury and it being mercurial doesn't always mean that you take the time to smell the roses. If you look at it rules Gemini, it rules Virgo. So Gemini is too busy rushing around. It doesn't filter its information, so sometimes it can just kind of like get a whole load of data, and you can make data into anything. Facts are movable really. Virgo is a lot more conscientious because it's an earth sign, but they are signs that are quite phonetic with energy. They're doing signs, moving signs, thinking signs. They are quite, they don't really sit still to smell the roses or just enjoy the journey. So in the retrograde, what tends to happen is the reason why it gets a bad rap is that we don't often think things through as well as we would have. This is why the whole idea with don't buy technology, don't buy a new car, because obviously that area is to do with Mercury. However, most of the problems happen when we don't read the fine print. We're too busy. So usually if you're a person who thinks things through, reads the fine print, you might just see something and then go, oh, I want that, and I want it now, and I want it in bright red, even though it cost me this many thousands more. I'm talking about cars. I've never really owned a car, so I don't know that much about them. But we don't think it through. We might buy that phone because it's a really good offer and it's a spur of the moment, and we then don't think that but instead of being a 18 month, it's 36 months, and now I've got this phone that perhaps I didn't need. So sometimes tech does go down, and I work in tech, but it's not more frequent, but the problems tend to be harder to work out. They require more investigation. They tend to be a lot bit more problematic. But in general, you can avoid worrying about Mercury retrograde if you just kind of be prepared. I guess that's the Boy and Girl Scout motto, be prepared. I'm going to say this and have to touch my table, touch wood. I don't often get hit by the Mercury retrograde. I get hit by perhaps outside of myself. That's, like transport issues. The reason why I don't is I usually leave early. I leave plenty of time. I double check my route. If I'm traveling, I will double check that I've got charge. And I've got the charger, and I'll double check that I've got my tickets and things like that. I'll have them in 2 forms. I'll have a list, and I triple check that list. Even if I'm buying tech, I will already have known what spec is important to me before I've brought it. So, and often I've brought tech and I've got really good deals and it lasted me a long time. It's an impulsive behaviour, but I already have done the legwork beforehand. So, really with those, you're not going to, because a lot of the time it's going to affect people who wing it. the Aries person who you can usually run through an airport or run through a train station, catches their train just in the nick of time, won't happen. And not only will that not happen, it will happen badly. The person who, you don't double check your letter you're sending out with your resume and there's a glaring error in it. There could be the fact that you're too much in a rush to read the contract and you don't read the details of it, or traveling, your phone battery dies and you have no backup of your tickets, and there's all these things that could go wrong. And if you're not prepared, that's where Mercury tends to hit you. It will hit the other people around you. There's stuff, as I said, like transport, you can't change. But, if you are, pretty organised anyway, you would have left ahead of time. You would have checked it. Doesn't mean you're always going to be hit, and it doesn't mean that you won't be sitting in a meeting and there's nobody else there because already a couple of you, because the whole people got their travels stuffed up because of Mercury retrograde. It doesn't mean that your tech won't break, but it's not the evil time that everyone suspects. Just take your time, and this really applies to people who rush in, wing it, or people who don't usually rush in and then Mercury retrograde. Yes, I really need this now. Still apply the critical thinking, still apply all of the things you would normally. Don't just rush in and buy something. Don't just, and one of the reasons why is that they say to redo it, and because it appears to go backwards. It's a good time to reflect and go back and see whether, and a lot of the times other issues are going to come up that, because obviously Mercury is about, is mental. So it's looking at your mental processes. So what are you thinking about? Where's your mindset? Does it need to be tweaked? Do you need to let go of something, but you need to work it through in your head? A lot of air signs will have to work things through in their head before they can actually they need to rationalise it first. So even though I've gone a little bit more in depth in Mercury retrograde, hopefully that will give you a little bit of an understanding in layman's terms about how you can actually beat the retrograde, and what it actually does. It's more likely to be prepared and make sure that you're I was going to say something else then, I won't, but be prepared and know that things might take a little bit more longer, because that's another side effect. Your post doesn't arrive on time, or you keep missing that delivery or something like that. So, just sometimes it doesn't go as smoothly, but if you're prepared, it should still go okay. So don't worry, don't freak out, don't blame Mercury retrograde, get prepared, and you'll survive this season, and then you'll survive the next one, which comes up in, I think, early 2020, and the other 2 times it comes up. So just don't freak out.